Our unit at the Times is called Visual Investigations. And what that means is the use of any type of video, satellite imagery, an Instagram post, police scanner audio, any sort of multimedia that we can forensically analyze to extract further information from it than that might be initially, not evident. And we use that to basically problem solve and answer basic journalistic questions: who, what, where, why, and when. So, for example, I'll just show you this one example of a chemical weapons attack in Syria, which was denied by the Syrian and Russian governments very forcefully. Part of the challenge here was that communications were very poor on that day, and so lots of very small clips, 5-6 seconds, 10-second clips were being uploaded as people could through WhatsApp, which didn't give us a full picture of what happened, and it was very difficult to connect these videos to one another. And they showed victims strewn throughout a building. And by piecing together architectural details from these tiny little clips, we were able to reconstruct the entire building and find where everybody lay. And that's one example. Broadcasters have more liberty in describing a scene and then using sort of these images as B-roll in the background. We're using them as evidence to clinically show that all of these victims relate to one another in the same building, and most importantly relate to a bomb that landed on the top of that building as well. So by reconstructing it all, and then looking at the bomb itself, and in the videos of the debris strewn around that balcony, there's also evidence that might not initially present itself. For instance, this twisted metal, we reconstructed it into an aerial rigging that fit perfectly onto the canister of chlorine, and also, which we've seen in previous chemical weapons attacks, we knew to look for this, for example, because it had been used so widely. And this indicates that the canister wasn't placed there as the Syrian government indicated or implied, but that it was delivered aerially. And that's important because only Syria controls the airspace. Another thing is, by examining and creating a 3D model from the videos that were broadcast by activists and Russian news media, we were able to recreate the balcony in 3D and examine the markings on the canister and how that related to the debris and the evidence strewn about the place. And the most important piece of evidence was this lattice-like marking on the side of the canister. It was actually on the underside of the canister, and it lay right beside this metal mesh. And we were able to measure the dimensions and prove that they're actually the same, and even look at the way the interlacing of the metal wires in that mesh, that lighter and heavier interlacing was also imprinted on the metal canister. And that could only happen when there's extreme force, when the canister meets that lattice at extreme force, not by resting on it, but again, it was further indication that this thing crashed down from the sky rather than being placed there after the fact to stage an event. And then most importantly, this, like, it was only a split second of video as a camera panned across that room and looked up to the ceiling. We thought we were looking at moonlight in the clouds, but actually when we color corrected it, we could see that the white is much smaller than the hole that was caused, and it's actually in this contour of the canister. But why is it yellow? Why is it white and not yellow? Well, we talked to experts at the Chlorine Institute who measure the behavior of chlorine canisters, and they say when they're opened and when they very quickly empty, the chlorine liquid that's left inside will cool to minus 29 degrees Fahrenheit, and that creates a layer of frost on the outside of the canister as it interacts with moisture in the air. And so that's what we have here. That was important because whereas the previous evidence proved where it happened, and also how it happened, an aerial attack, this proves to us when it happened. And by tracking down the guy who took this footage, by the way, this is behavior we had seen previously in other chemical attacks as well. But by tracking down the guy who took that footage, we get the metadata, which includes the hour, minute, and second that he filmed that footage. And that allows us to calculate a time frame for when this attack happened, which was corroborated by multiple witness accounts and by sightings of military helicopters in the area at that time, and again completely contravened the story that Russia and Syria were offering for the attack. And they described it as a scene from a Hollywood film, a total farce, and what have you. And so together the incremental evidence built a picture that we're able to scientifically prove shows that it was an aerial attack. So that's typical of the type of investigations that we do. It's not simply video to describe a scene or to show an event, but it's a deep analysis of the information within the imagery that allows us to draw new insights and come to stronger conclusions than a he said, she said narrative about major events.